beings. There are many very positive activations taking place in all interdimensional fields that will lead to a rapid third-dimensional disintegration and enlightened contact that will greatly support collective humanity and spiritual initiation towards heart-based freedom, loving kindness and planetary liberation through the timeline of disclosure. At the same time, the mainstream media is beating drums of conflict and broadcasting mind control signals to dampen this massive flood of solar plasma light, benevolent kindness and humanitarian support rapidly propelling us towards a collective planetary event. Factions, who are currently feuding within groups of controllers, have become desperate and are using every resource at their disposal to forcefully redirect the collective consciousness towards the agents of chaos, provoking unrest and misleading, further encouraging submission to division and fear narratives. Unfortunately, a heavy burden for most awakening people is the difficult realization that most of the intelligent people around them will only superficially look at some event of great importance, ignoring any semblance of critical thinking, common sense and reason. As a result of exposure to full-scale control programming above reason, many still don't seem to care to learn more about the crimes committed against humanity. Instead, their situational understanding is broken as they continue to ignore the screaming red flags and reinforce the main propaganda of dark ideological diversion and their controlled narratives. Instead of delving deeper into what happened to our civilization through open dialogue, or being prepared to analyze the critical information that is available to those who are willing to study it, they simply shut down and completely ignore the situation. Many of those who have awakened and realized the current anti-human plans, see that many people around them persistently avoid considering anything that can violate their reality or personal comfort zone. Those who have awakened to the deceptions of the controllers, in the disintegration of the third dimension, continue to destroy the main pillars of society from the inside. And so, we have reached another milestone of the planetary shift, when the massive gears that provide forward movement in the world of forces are bursting at the seams, pushing the collective consciousness of humanity towards another significant event. Many of us are aware of global changes and observe the effects of time, in where the point of divergence in the perception of reality between the two main groups is growing. There are spiritual opportunities for the masses to make a life choice towards greater love and truth, which will be a harbinger of new beginnings on the Ascension timeline, or to remain in mental slavery to 3D fear and tyrannies that will be aligned with more painful situations filled with the emotional despair of the end times and the grief of significant loss. Humanity will coexist in some way in these two major realities happening side by side as the third-dimensional disintegration and enlightened contact happen simultaneously, and the themes of experience are conscious. These are explored through the lens of human liberation or mental bondage. However, for those spiritually awakening to the enlightened contact experience, this will feel like a separate reality in which the opposite timeline based on fear will seem far away, like watching a horror movie taking place in some other world. During this cycle, the extreme external pressure caused by the result of the timeline shift can lead to withdrawal from certain social circles, including friends and family members who are deeply rooted in the 3D world. As such, thus, many who are stuck in mind control still harbor emotional conflicts of persecution and trauma that contribute to unresolved subconscious fears of facing the unknown. There are people we love and care about who would choose to move even further away from truth and seekers. Truth. They can suddenly change their personality in such a way that become unrecognizable and inaccessible, turning into someone else you never knew. Some people may redouble their efforts by getting even deeper into a controlled environment, stubbornly denying any evidence that contradicts their doctrine of a 3D belief system that is usually based on similar thought forms reinforced by their loved ones. Since the disintegration of the third dimension is taking place, this can cause great subconscious fear and denial of the events taking place. Instead of evolving beyond the existing state of affairs, they will prefer to protect the very system of social control that enslaves their trauma-based mind control deceptions because they find it more convenient to maintain beliefs in their current lifestyle. Unfortunately, they may suddenly find those family members or friends awakening to greater truth and enlightened contact as the main threat to their current perception of reality, and yet thus viciously turn on them. Further, they may transfer their fears and project their shadow wounds onto you as seekers of the truth or mouthpieces of the truth, wanting to punish those who choose personal beliefs different from their own. When you open a dialogue and ask them uncomfortable questions, they may consider you the source of all their problems. Thus, they may abruptly end a relationship or friendship, betray your trust without warning or explanation, even start a campaign to discredit or denigrate your personality. This energetic chasm creates great difficulty in connecting or communicating with those groups that are on a polar opposite or descending timeline, as they simply cannot see or perceive what those on a higher timeline see and perceive. Continuing fear propaganda fuels the negative ego in such a way that many people are consumed by its shadows and remain disconnected from their heart and inner spirit, making them unable to see, feel or discern true frequencies. In these difficult moments, we will need very strong skin to remain neutral in the midst of the great changes taking place in our lives, caused by the ongoing events of information disclosure. Observing the contrast between people affected by the changes and a loving and compassionate heart, clothed into the spiritual armor of God, must know that we need to remain committed to a state of unconditional love in very difficult circumstances. Love must be the inner and main guiding force to remember that we are spiritual warriors serving truth and light, so we cannot to control the choices of others or to take personally someone else's unkind words with false accusations. Even when we are calm, loving, neutral and speak compassionately in a deliberately respectful mutual dialogue, relatives, friends or acquaintances may not be able to cope with fear, which they experience when they launch it, or to understand what exactly you say right. Instead, they may relentlessly accuse you of something as a scapegoat, or use mental distractions, such as verbal attacks on your character, to quickly turn any conversation into unapproved topics. This dynamic can be emotionally painful and very quickly destroys open communication and trust between individuals and groups. The only thing we can take control of is ourselves, consciously choosing how we best respond to difficult situations, which may include mental breakdown and the growth of alienated relationship. Thus, the chasm continues to widen between those who believe in the bad and those who break through the mind control frequency fence to unite with the forces of love that feed the global humanism that exists on the other side on this ascension path. As a result of strong external pressure, we will need to find healthy ways to redirect our personal stress in order to we must protect our mental health and sanity, as well as the health of our children. This is especially important as we watch others around us crumble and descend into insanity, displaying erratic behavior and dissonance that can border on a range of negative ego pathologies and serious delusional states. Many people will not be able to come to terms with the truth that clear evidence is revealing to them, or will not be able to comprehend the magnitude of these planetary shifts in disclosure that will forever change human civilization. Unfortunately, as a result of the madness, the separation will become more and more obvious to those minds who are not ready to deal with the total collapse of the 3D world when they find out that everything they were ever taught in school, reinforced by society and those they trusted, was in fact filled with deceptions and lies designed to exploit everyone else. It will hurt us when we realize that no matter what clear and credible revealing evidence is presented to a person suffering from extreme brainwashing, even if it is proven to be black and white factual events, the stress may have crossed the point of no return. All we can do is silent prayer and surrender to God. Many people are completely unaware that humanity is engaged in an active spiritual struggle on several fronts. Thus, in the future, we will have to face the fact that there is a part of society that qualifies as mentally ill and seriously injured people who are unable to cope with the harsh awareness of many unpleasant truths that will surface in relation to human civilization. As we enter the phases of disintegration of society, many people lose confidence in the rules and regulations from above and seek to reorganize into parallel structures with those who have similar values or like-minded people. These are groups of starseeds or ascending angelic humans who choose self-guidance out of immense love guiding them from within their hearts to form cooperative alliances with others in which dependence on this vicious system that fuels a culture of death and separation can be eliminated. From this place of choice of love instead of fear, many of us are completely guided by our hearts and we will enter into a new beginning of co-creation that offers protection, support, and meaningful connections. The start of these humanitarian and service-oriented projects is dependent on divine timing and spiritual guidance, as time is everything in such matters, and many of us will receive more clarity during this year. And so, why the chosen ones are making contact and the definition of enlightened contact as density locks are opening in all dimensions due to recent planetary activations. This means that potential communication with the whole will begin. A number of extra-dimensional enlightened beings, which will begin the next stages of our planetary liberation. Guardians are concerned that human angels have not been properly instructed in the need to clear negative ego and develop emotional stability, as well as the degree of spiritual maturity necessary for the correct dealing with such contacts carried out by their straight spiritual family lines. The following information contains guidance for starseeds, indigos, and awakening humans on the personal responsibility needed to understand that no higher enlightened being or extraterrestrial race should ever be perceived as greater or more valuable than yourself. Highly recommended to practice the guidance of the law of one as a way of life and to know that this is a prerequisite for preparing for enlightened contact. Thus, it is very important that those Earth people who will be contacted in the future by their star family or kinship lines have some basic understanding protocols of the guardians, as well as the mental and emotional maturity necessary to maintain the stability and personal competence to engage in productive mutual communication in order to prepare to interact or communicate with a range of benevolent non-human beings from other worlds. We need to have a practical understanding of self-love embodied, self-acceptance and commitment to the personal responsibility necessary to maintain personal sovereignty. We must have some practical understanding of what is required to manifest in this reality with the principles of ethical behavior, responsible co-creation and gain wisdom and maturity from direct life experience. To be an active representative of the guardians, you need to be a loving, stable and competent person with the skills of emotional self-regulation. Such people avoid manifestations of megalomania, a messiah complex, superiority elitism thought forms and addiction tendencies, knowing the dangers that heroism represents and self-deception for rapidly declining mental and emotional health. Acting as an ambassador or facilitator in interstellar communications and being available for direct enlightened contact requires a certain amount of self-control with psychological and emotional competence to remain consistent and clear in the presence of beings that seem very different from ourselves. Thus, this is not a game of fantasy to be trifled with. Humanity is caught unawares in the midst of a strategic war game for control of the Earth, in which opponents promise to lead us to the complete liberation of mankind. Use all the means at their disposal, provoking diversionary maneuvers through the organization of events under false flags and world conflicts. The Guardians are returning to enlighten humanity about the ancient lore of our stellar history and the hybridization conflicts with aliens that our race was involved in but were subsequently turned into mind-controlled amnesiac slaves to forget themselves and be exploited by these invaders. Humans angels were originally created to be guardians who protected the planetary temple complex of the Gaia network, which includes time travel through interdimensional stargates, portals, and access to natural methods of accessing abundant forms of pure and stable free energy. And so, the families of the controllers cooperate with the invaders. It is important to understand that the species of invaders with anti-human plans have already been on the planet and formed into numerous factions of secret societies based on dark rituals, deeply rooted and secretly integrated to control every area of human civilization. The hierarchy of controllers is extensive because they exist on and off the planet, but Guardian Society tends to identify them by their primary goals and by their original Antichrist origins, which are secret groups. These are the key themes of the upcoming timeline reveal that will be incredibly shocking to the human population, and therefore the world will need kind and caring people in every industry or specialty to be of service in helping to rebuild our world. Since the beginning of 2020, successive levels of these interdimensional realities that have been intertwined with these anti-human agendas run by these families, the controllers giving orders to the disparate secret intelligence groups that protected these projects, are sequentially identified, red-checked, and then evicted and eliminated. Systematically, the hierarchies of these controller families are identified and eliminated from gaining access to their vast accumulation of power, wealth and resources that have been used to maintain vast underground utopian cities, trade tunnels, hubs and technology labs serving secret operations paid for by hard-working people on the surface of the Earth. These non-human entities can inhabit a human-like body, and carry out control and implementation of anti-human programs, working directly with the same factions of human controllers. These controllers have infiltrated the army, science, medical research, academia, and through various covert methods, ensuring that this information is concealed, while the control to them the media is spreading aggressive mind control propaganda. Human scientists and various extraterrestrial species have been secretly collaborating since the 1930s, conducting a series of experiments in secret laboratories hidden behind the windows of corporations financed by billions of complexes, which were hidden from the public. Indecent number of taxpayer-supported government agencies and non-governmental organizations are channeling vast networks of galactic trade, as well as seizing accumulated wealth and planetary resources to alter all planetary species for non-human entities and their minions. Experiments are being carried out in laboratories related to combining bioforms with types of nanotechnology that can be controlled using quantum supercomputers. Thus, we must know that the control groups of the power elite have long taken over scientific, academic and medical institutions in order to suppress the knowledge that our planet is ruled by extraterrestrial visitors who come from many different interdimensional levels that exist within the universal time matrix. Therefore, earthly people are subjected to blatant exploitation, mind control and enslavement by false and incorrect information provided by academic institutions on many issues, falsifying all data related to our ancient human origins. It is very important to know that everything against humanity is based on alien hybridization plans, and throughout our hidden stellar history, it has become clear that humanity is losing to destroy the angelic human DNA in its original embedded form. Modern mainstream sciences have been corrupted by untruths, and the true advanced technological sciences have been hidden from the public in vast underground cities, tunnels, and off-planet civilizations. This is done in order to let people learn that the elite families of controllers work in direct cooperation with other non-human species as the fruits of human labor, wealth, resources and technology are stolen and siphoned from under our noses to pay for our own decline. Exact sciences, including quantum mechanics combined with multidimensional physics, show the plausible existence of a cosmic order of consciousness, and also explain interdimensional and extradimensional entities from other worlds. These interdimensional entities or visitors are not developed at higher levels of consciousness, but have access to more advanced technologies that gives them the opportunity ons, including the transfer of consciousness and the astral projection of your subtle energy body, moving through numerous dimensions of reality, interacting with the Earth. Successful scientists and academics are the spokesmen for the controllers who are forced to ridicule the existence of extraterrestrial life and keep us focused on the 3D material plane of physical reality. Such multidimensional energy phenomena can be explained and traced at quantum levels and beyond 3D reality on the many interdimensional planes that coexist separately along with our own. We must learn our lessons in rebuilding our humanitarian civilization, helping each other to understand that the root cause of the current deplorable state of world suffering lies in the vast mind control of all people that was designed by the invaders. It is clear that all humans were deceived and suffered greatly in this fight because the surface humans were sold as consciousness slaves on a prison planet controlled by these families who were further controlled or possessed by entities. Every person who has been contacted by interdimensional entities or who has experienced abduction scenarios should be well aware that the Earth is of great interest to these non-human entities who want to access the entire planetary genetic library without restrictions. On the planet, the history of the human race genetic lineage and tribal affiliation is encoded in the interdimensional Stargate mechanics in the grid network that is stored in the DNA record of an incarnated human being, even when their potential remains dormant and inactive. The vast majority of those who are contacted or abducted are directly related to the genetic affiliation of a person to one of the three main interdimensional star programs that are associated with this particular star family located in the higher dimensions of reality. Those who serve the light forces support the cosmic sovereign law to achieve human freedom and the liberation of the planet, which extends beyond this universe into the cosmic source realm and dates back to the first creation of the divine worlds. The other two, the group darkened alien hybrids, originally come from a fallen parallel matrix that served the world order government from the current programs of slavery to bring about the Great Reset. There are invader entities that work to enslave humanity and thus manipulate and steal planetary resources for their own selfish ends. Or there are enlightened benevolent entities that truly oppose any level of deception and manipulating humanity and telling only the truth. Guardian groups support those who speak the truth, free-thinking individualism, personal autonomy and concepts of personal sovereignty that ultimately protect human freedom and the liberation of the planet. Thus, The Guardians work tirelessly to eliminate artificial alien mind control systems built into the planetary complex to help humanity learn the truth about our reality by causing a global awakening and a full disclosure event. Those starseed groups that are doing their best to serve human liberation or the Christ mission will eventually either they serve the light forces and work to free the planet from the invading plans of alien hybridization, which are designed to destroy the original human DNA. Thus, it is very important to know that alien hybridization was done through medical brainwashing by taking pharmaceutical drugs and introducing foreign DNA. The more humanity undergoes hybridization with foreign DNA, the more susceptible they become automatons used as pawns and sleeping in dark portals by these same invasion groups. First of all, in order to regain your spiritual power, you must know that you have spiritual power in the natural laws of God, which are based on the cosmic sovereign law of one. When you know yourself as a multi-dimensional spiritual being and know that you have an eternal soul, spirit, and Christ who is connected or one with the divine source, then you are on your way to knowing that you have a spiritual power in which you have free will and a divine right to choose where to direct that power. Exploring the multidimensional human anatomy and how it corresponds to the perception of human consciousness, located in the layers of the mind matrices, begins to reawaken the parts of the spiritual body that were in a sleeping state. When connecting with the mind matrices in order to awaken consciousness, you choose each level to regain your spiritual power as an embodied eternal consciousness, one with God and natural laws. In any visit or contact, keep to the point and the view that you are equal to any being or visitor, knowing that you have the same potentials to be as advanced and developed as they may appear. Each person has the opportunity to consciously develop and integrate the higher aspects of spiritual identity and activate dormant DNA to achieve advanced consciousness growth. Take personal responsibility for your own path of consciousness evolution. Do not project or expect others to direct your personal evolution on your behalf. Becoming spiritually mature means you are learning to be in charge of yourself and the direction of your personal energies, and that learning about your multidimensional aspects and how your consciousness works is part of becoming a spiritual adult. It is recommended that your first priority be to connect and remember your spiritual aspects through meditation and prayer. It is important to work to overcome fear, embody love, and give everything to serve your higher self. Its manifestation or divine source. Consciously choosing the intent, consent, and authority to serve the divine source, while knowing that you do not need another person or a formal religion to achieve spiritual self-realization. Hold your personal decision-making power in your hands and make sure that you are in control of your spiritual evolution and destiny in order to fulfill your unique divine destiny of incarnation on this planet. Never allow any other entity to create a wedge or stand between you and your direct connection to the divine source. We do not need intermediaries, and we must choose to connect directly with God with the intention of integrating your personal levels of higher dimensional personality as divine sources and inspiration. When you empower yourself through introspection and acceleration of inner potentials, refusing to allow others to take control of you by consciously choosing the direction of your own life, you become a living example and helps others to empower themselves and do the same. Be prepared to learn about the law of one, which is natural laws, in such a way as to become adept at manifesting out of pure intent loving kindness, non-judgment, united cooperation, and respect for other living forms. When we give our manifestations to God and ask to serve the divine plan when praying for spiritual guidance, we are given intuitions that guide us through the process of karmic-free manifestation. Karmic-free manifestations are based on synchronistic divine alignment, which allows the best options to be realized with absolute harmlessness, and thus manifestations are freed from the influence of shadows and dark manipulations. When you make the commitment to spiritual awakening a priority and sincerely develop towards realizing the principles of spiritual maturity and clearing the negative ego, it is very likely that in the future you will experience enlightened contact with the benevolent powers of the Guardians and others races that stand for human freedom. If you can take on this responsibility with the maturity and emotional stability necessary to receive this level of truth about our reality, perhaps you can help the Guardian races make themselves known to the surface human population in benevolent form. The more of us who are able to act in accordance with the true principles of the law of one, the more each person has an important role that can greatly help support the global awakening and evolution of humanity towards the unpacking of the timeline of disclosure. Do not believe that all contact with visitors is benevolent and beneficent, and do not put any entities on a pedestal as gods or saviors. It is important not to be blinded by the astral glamour, skills or abilities that the visitor can use to manipulate what may seem supernatural to most people. We must understand that just because they can detect certain advanced abilities, they are not necessarily ethical, moral, or have the same spiritual goals of serving the law of one and supporting the restoration of the cosmic order. Do your best not to succumb to fear and feel overwhelmed or powerless in this situation. In most cases, the guardians will not visit a person gripped by fear, but unscrupulous entities can manipulate such people as long as they are able. Dimensional locks are being opened, and so a huge number of other life forms are now potentially in contact with humans during this time phase. Our civilization is having serious problems with AI networks, and their complex systems are being launched for strategy games with numerous factions of those groups of controllers who give orders to them to serve their own interests. The best option at this time is to watch these outer planes compassionately, as they all play a big part in the strategy of the game, but realize that most people will be greatly disappointed when they find out about the corruption that exists even among those who claim to be good guys. Be picky, be careful, and don't give trust to those who don't deserve it. Be careful and don't rely too much on those bands that have nurtured popular columnists to keep giving misinformation to their loyal public in order to deceive them. Patriots should demand more from the leaders of their group movements and demand that they be told the truth, and not be constantly deceived and pushed to misinformation by paying for sponsorship or agreements made with certain factions. This means that people must be ready to find out the truth, and be ready to seek the truth about our reality, which has a complex history and can be extremely unpleasant to reveal. However, we cannot evolve from this mess, leading us to the co-creation of hell realms, perpetuating a tangle of lies, stubbornly maintaining a controlled 3D world filled with terrible deceptions designed to enslave humanity. It is necessary that more people stand up for the truth, demanding that their leaders tell them the truth, and stop allowing politicians or others to manipulate many good-hearted people by constantly using funded disinformation tactics. We do not condone deliberate misinformation and propaganda lies used to deceive the public in any form, because in order for humanity to be healed, it needs someone in leadership to tell it the truth. Guardians will initiate enlightened contact with loving kindness, respect and reverence for personal sovereignty, expecting the same response. Guardians will require that you, as a human being, be willing to take self-responsibility and make personal efforts for your own learning, growth and personal healing. It is recommended to work with the process of establishing the 12D Christ shield, testing the boundaries and the pledge of oneness in the morning and before bed, which will help tune your energy field to the frequency of the Christ Guardians. When an enlightened contact occurs, it can be very subtle in order to test the emergence fields and your specific reactions to such energy contact. As a rule, at first they do not provide evidence of their contact, because, as in any situation where it is necessary to establish a trusting relationship, they check your integrity in order to create a reliable connection for the purpose of exchanging information. When this connection is established, you can ask for their help in a way that biologically restores your original template and reclaims your unique spiritual heritage. The bond of communication can be severed if an individual's base frequency plummets and exceptional negative behaviors take over. Regardless of the cause follows, remember that it will take some effort to ask for this enlightened contact. This means that the spiritual acceleration will happen quickly and that your life may not remain the same, which means that you must consider the consequences and make wise decisions. Again, before you decide to intentionally ask for positive contact with the guardians, you should already have developed a daily personal protection process with the 12D Christ shield, pledge of oneness, and testing boundaries. Then when you feel you are being guided at the right agreed time, highlight the process of falling into a state of sleep before going to sleep, in which the main focus is on prayerful intent to connect with the guardians who serve the cosmic sovereign law, in the power and authority of God and Christ. For approximately 21 days before going to bed, offer a prayer of goodwill in the service of God and ask for connection and contact with the guardians who serve the One, the Most, in a genuine and sincere loving way as you express a sincere longing for personal spiritual healing and service to others. In week 4, Add the following exercise before bed. Be sure to keep a diary and pen by your bed to record your impressions and remember the experience when you will wake up in the morning. Keep track of the time you work with this exercise to reach the sleep state, and pay attention to subtle energy shifts or different sensory perceptions in daily life. Before going to sleep, connect the frequency of 12D and above and focus on the inner vertical channel from the coccyx to the base of the skull, intending to strengthen its inner poison row and be very confident in your direct relationship with God. Now set out to manage your personal space in service to the cosmic sovereign law of one, and then create blessings, divine, sovereign, free, for your sacred space during sleep for the purpose of communicating with God and loving true spirits of Christ. Focus on your heart, feel and intend to see the aqua blue mist form into a perfect drop of aquamarine heart flame within your emerald crystal heart. Now intend to create a whole circulating circuit with a drop of aquamarine heart flow or start the morite flame. Intend to hold a drop of aquamarine heart flame throughout the channel of the microcosmic orbit, pushing the aquamarine drop from the heart down into the coccyx. The flow of the aquamarine and emerald flame. As you exhale, make the intention to push the aquamarine emerald flame beyond the crown and into your 10th chakra sun star, which is about 15 centimeters above your head. Now see how the 10D sun star projects aquamarine emerald flame into a horizontal sphere that acts as an aquamarine emerald platform upon which positive contact can be initiated. For some, this sunstar platform can also project or evolve into other spatial colors such as sapphire diamond or lilac lavender tones, in contact with the Amethyst Order of Ra Christ collectives, such as the Amethyst Order of Ramins. Now imagine yourself in a reduced physical form, sitting on top of and within this platform space, with the intention that you are preparing the space for the initiation of higher frequencies, through that you can make positive contact with God or the guardians. Use the practice of imagining and seeing your physical self in this platform space that you have created within your 10D sun star and focus on the intentions of loving kindness, compassion and meaningful connection with your true spiritual self family. Formulate straight O intentional request that is personal and meaningful to you. If you don't feel connected to the concept of guardians, then use a word that evokes feelings of openness, love, and expansion in your heart. For example, you could ask your guardians to meet with you, expressing that you would like to meet with them and feel the energy signature of your spiritual family when it is in the highest alignment to serve your divine purpose. Once you work with this to prepare the ground, create space, formulate clear intent and then practice seeing yourself sitting on the platform that you have created for contact, then subtle forms of energy contact will appear. What forms this enlightened contact will take depends on each person. This is happening now, and this year begins our spiritual journey in search of truth and ultimate healing from what has happened to humanity. When you focus on the holy in my heart, feeling within it the sacred inner marriage, send your gratitude to God. Send your gratitude to Christ. Send your gratitude to Christ Sophia. With great joy and reverence, I return home in the sunshine of Christ and Christ Sophia. Peace to your heart, peace to your mind, peace to your body. May unconditional love and perfect peace be with all, kept in the eternal light of God and Christ. Until next time, stay in the radiance of the heart path. Avatar Christ Sophia. Please be kind to yourself and to each other. Divine, sovereign,